What is up, Rebel colonists and Mars citizens? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode we are starting Volume 2 of Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Frozen Teardrop, Rondo of Redemption. Last time, Kathy Poe went through the trace files using virtual reality. He and his brother Vaunt rose through the ranks swiftly. Trace helped create the Oz that we see in AC-195. Also, Princess Aurora, aka Hiro Yui, awakens. This time, the battle on the moon takes place. We see through the eyes of the Anti-Alliance commander Artemis as she tries to predict Trace and his specials' every move. So let's get into this. Hiro Yui emerges from the pod. He is already proving that he is better than everybody by moving his body, something that takes the strongest people at least a day to do. He's just better than you. Deal with it, he says to brief him on the current situation. But Master Chang has to test something first. Hiro once said that he would never kill again after the events of Frozen Teardrop. He wonders if he still feels the same way. He says, "Who's that little shit?" referring to baby duo Maxwell. Father Maxwell tells him that it is his son. He turns to Kathy and says, "Who is this Sally ripoff?" Kathy is offended, but Master Chang tells her that she needs to finish going through the records. She puts on the glasses once again. She says that the baby version of Hiro she saw is probably more interesting anyways. AC-186, Summer. Trace and his men are at the L1 colony cluster preparing for his attack on the moon. The moon's gravity is 1/6 of Earth's. They needed something beyond the Type 3 Chimera. This is where the new grief comes in. This is the pinnacle of Leo engineering. Says Clark, the head engineer, thinks that this machine is practically a tall geese and hates it, as it represents the opposite of the minimal and efficient Leo. He hated it so much that he tendered his resignation. The grief has the firepower of the Leo with the flight power of the Artemis. It also has a shoulder-mounted cannon that rivals the cannon of the Tragos. This is an all-in-one mobile suit. This mobile suit made Sace irrelevant in his eyes. But for Trace, it's not about the machine, but rather the pilot. He has 3 cardinal instincts: intuitive grasp of enemy proximity, the visceral understanding of battlefield conditions, and the psychological resilience to maintain clarity. The Anti-Alliance forces will certainly have a grasp of the terrain. His specials are going to have to adapt to the lunar surface quickly. They have 3 days till they make their way to the lunar surface at the Sea of Tranquility lunar base. The Alliance forces have 15 Chimeras, 5 lunar surface combat Type 2 Tragoses, and 5 high-mobility fighters. The Anti-Alliance forces now have the Sagittarius along with 80 mobile suits. With Trace's forces, that makes it 50 versus 80. Take into account that they have the Sagittarius and it's closer to 50 versus 130. They are at a disadvantage. On the Sagittarius, there are fights breaking out between soldiers and workers. Some want to begin peace negotiations, while others want to strike the Sea of Tranquility base. Artemis Sidici doesn't want to fight, but she doesn't have any alternative solutions. They get word that Alliance forces were seen at the L1 colony. Supplies are dwindling and people are getting impatient as they run out of air. Letting the Anti-Alliance forces devour themselves is a part of the plan for Trace, which is why he wants to wait 3 days. The Sagittarius hasn't moved for 2 days. He knows that if they capture the lunar base, they're going to use it as leverage to declare independence. Trace plays it out in his mind what would happen if they took the base. Essentially, L1 and L2 colonies would support the Anti-Alliance forces, and a siege battle would play out on the moon. Trace is thinking hundreds of moves ahead. Artemis understands that capturing the base won't lead to their freedom as well. At L1, Zex and Noin enjoy a cup of coffee. They look out at all the constellations. The two have a very cringe conversation about the stars. During this conversation is when Noin realized her love for Zex, though she doesn't seem to know that he is Milliardo Peacecraft just yet. At the other side of the bar is Odin Lowe and Aoi Clark having cocktails. She is the younger Hiro Yui's mother. She is also an Oz secret agent undercover as Sace's wife. Odin is the father of the young Hiro, though he doesn't seem to be around often. He mentions that Sace is pushing people too hard, but she says that it is actually Tuberoff that is pushing them. This caused him to be removed from the development team. This minor setback would fuel Tuberoff to later build the mobile dolls. Odin is giving secrets to Artemis. She tries to bring up the assassination of Hiro Yui, and he tells her to drop it. One thing is for sure, they don't want neither Oz or the Anti-Alliance forces to get their hands on Gundanium. They know this will be used to create Gundams in the future. After 3 days, the specials touched base with the Sea of Tranquility Space Force. Artemis studied Trace and his tactics. Conversely, Trace probably didn't even know Artemis or her name. Artemis is tactical, but she views her men as chess pieces. Trace, on the other hand, has complete faith in his men. Meanwhile, Vaughn is handling an outbreak on L2. This is referred to as the colony flu, which has a 40% mortality rate. Ew, space COVID. The L1 colonies have many doctors from the Saint Kingdom. Vaughn relied on their experience and backed them financially, though they don't seem to back him. They were able to distribute a new vaccine swiftly. On L2, someone named Solo contracted the virus. His friend stole a vaccine to try to save him, but he was too late. Throughout all of this chaos, the friend never got the virus himself. He decides to call himself Duo in honor of Solo. Vaughn went to visit his mother, Angeline, at the hospital at the L1 point. She is so lucid that she believes that she is still in the Saint Kingdom. Vaughn shed a tear, but made sure his mother didn't see him. It was frustrating for him to watch her wither away. She asks about Trace. He tells her he is currently on the moon. He says that Trace wouldn't have cried if he were here. That is why he is going to be the one who unites us all. Trace and his team are ready to launch. The soldiers are riled up, which is still weird considering Trace is only 14 years old. His grief held the vanguard. His unit is white and blue, which reminds him of the ice during his childhood vacation, the good times with his mother. Trogos and Chimeras follow behind him. The team moves in slow and methodically. On the Sagittarius Bridge, Artemis thinks their forces are insignificant. Luckily, there is a lot of distance between the two. Artemis realizes that they are moving slowly to provoke them into firing the Sagittarius beam cannon. Trace hid the Trogos squad behind the enemy horizon line. His specials are to protect Trace. Zex is loving the new griefs while Noin looks out at the stars. Everyone seems cool and collected. They remain still, neither side willing to make the first move. Artemis watches as the Alliance forces draw what seems to be like a demarcation line. That is when Trace tells his Trogos line to open fire. They aren't anywhere close to one another to hit anything. Artemis recognizes that this is Trace's Mogadishu tactics. It has a ceremonial approach to it. It is a similar tactic to British Army strategies seen during the American War for Independence. All they are missing is some kind of drummer boy. The Trogos sends another volley of missiles. Artemis sends out their Chimeras. The Trogos instantly falls back. Something feels off. They push back towards the Trogos, but Trace, who was the vanguard, is now nowhere to be seen. She is paranoid and thinks she is falling into Trace's trap. That is when anti-Alliance Chimeras go down. They triggered landmines. The Alliance forces weren't drawing demarcation lines. They were laying mines. She tells all units to halt, but explosions goes off. She tells all forces to converge on the Sagittarius. This creates a smokescreen of dust and dirt. However, in moon gravity, the dust and dirt sticks around for a long time as dust doesn't dissipate in the wind like on Earth. 10 anti-Alliance Chimeras have been struck down. They still have a 2-to-1 advantage. They pick up a heat signature right in front of them and they fired their beam cannon. But it was only ballistics from the Trogos. This was a tactical faux pas on her end. She picks up 25 heat signatures and wonders where Trace is hiding the griefs. That is when the griefs make their attack on the Sagittarius. The anti-Alliance forces is using the moon as the battlefield, but Trace is using space as the battlefield and views the moon as merely an object on said battlefield. Essentially, the griefs swung around the light side of the moon undetected. The battle is on the dark side of the moon. The Alliance now has the Sagittarius surrounded. Trace tells everyone to attack. The anti-Alliance Chimeras covering the rear and front are taken out in an instant. Sagittarius has 2 minutes before they can fire the cannon again. They begin moving back. Moving while firing the cannon will reduce accuracy, but that won't matter too much. Artemis redirects her ace Chimera pilots to attack the Griefs. The Griefs don't have the strongest output when it comes to firepower, as that still belongs to the Chimeras. As they run out of power, the Specials pull out their beam sabers and they carve a path towards the Sagittarius. They move in to protect Trace as he moves forward. The main cannon is charged and ready to fire in 10 seconds. Oh hey, we actually get an image of what the Sagittarius looks like in this photo. It just looks like a giant mining facility that can move. With seconds left, Trace fires his medium-range gun and destroys the cannon. Because of the cannon, the Sagittarius does an emergency shutoff on all controls. Trace and Elv pull back while Noin and Izumi dismantle the ship. More anti-Alliance Chimeras come in to protect what remains of the fleet. Zex and Solak's team are still fighting against the Aces, but they are distracting them from helping the Sagittarius. As the battle exhausts both sides, the Sagittarius is able to get power back. They begin to withdraw. The Greeks were able to force the remaining 30 Chimeras to retreat. The battle is over. Artemis accepts defeat from Trace. Three factors contributed to the anti-Alliance forces' defeat. First off, Artemis's psychological state was affected by Trace's ability once the battle began. She started making decisions and then changing her mind last minute. Because of this, she was premature on the beam cannon. Second was the performance difference between the Chimeras and the Griefs. The Griefs' performance was better, but Artemis had more numbers. She could have won if she moved in fast and swiftly, but she dragged the fight out, giving Trace an advantage. And third was the tactical strategy to circle around the moon. Most of the damage was done with Artemis's psychological crash out mid-battle, but the final factor solidified the win. The Alliance handled the aftermath while Trace and his men went back to the L1 colony cluster. He meets with his brother Vaunt. He is happy, but Trace thinks this is a victory because the plant was destroyed. Trace also reflects on the losses of his enemies. The two brothers plan on seeing their mother while at L1. Trace made a visit already and doesn't have it in him to tell his brother that she ain't doing too well. He will just have to see for himself. He suggests that Vaunt see his father as well, even though his brother doesn't want to. As Trace has never met his father, Hiroyui, he suggests that he see him regardless of his feelings. Their visit to their father is short. Trace is cordial, but Vaunt is passive-aggressive. They then visit their mother, Angelina. Vaunt discusses the rumors of mobile suits being developed with Gundanium alloy by colony scientists. They're looking into it, but Trace suggests they make working conditions on the lunar surface better. Vaunt is working on affordable housing at L1 and L2 with shuttles running to and from the moon. Both Vaunt and Trace have different approaches, but they are both doing it in the name of preventing another Hiroyui assassination. Their mother's words when younger transformed into idealism to fit the two individuals' needs. They go to visit their mother where a nurse is giving her a sponge bath. Vaunt is slowly becoming paranoid at everything and everyone, and punches the nurses because he thinks he's doing a bad touch. Trace has to calm him down before they talk to their mother. When she sees her, Angelina tells Trace, like she always does, that he will end conflict and be the one to save everyone. But she doesn't acknowledge Vaunt. She doesn't seem to remember him as her health slowly devolves, which is sad because Vaunt has more love for their mother than he does. This moment broke Vaunt. Though he continued supporting his brother, he started to become delirious. He exerts what little power he has in the moment by forcing the hospital to provide female-only staff, and threatens the hospital director's job. Also in L1 is Odin Lowe, working for the Barton Foundation, who is hired to help Artemis and the anti-Alliance forces. Aoi Clark is spying, serving under Vaunt to secure blueprints of this new Gundanium alloy mobile suit codenamed the Gundam. A third party is also crossing paths at L1. It is Sace Clark and his son, who he believes is destined to take the codename Hiroyui. So because Aoi is undercover as Sace's wife, Hiroyui is technically undercover as his son. They don't specify, and the wiki refers to him as Hiro's stepfather. But I'm pretty sure Aoi is lying to Sace and just claimed it was his kid. Also, Hiroyui's a 6-year-old spy. This psycho was bred for this lifestyle. But what I also didn't realize is that it makes Hiro and Tronc Clark related. It makes sense he was somewhat able to pilot Wing Zero before the Zero system made him mad. MC0022, next winter. Master Chang has images of Relina on his monitor. He wonders if Hiro will be able to kill her. She is going by the Peacecraft name once again. Relina is the Preventor's target. Hiro understands. He once again is ready to kill Relina. Oh boy, here we go again. One thing to note is that their group is never military, despite them being military trained and using military vocabulary. They achieve this through sheer will. The book then goes into an elaborate and pathetic attempt to justify him killing again after proclaiming to never kill again. They insult you, the audience, with this quote. The very contradiction illuminates both his thoughtful humanity and the raw wounds of his heart. Fuck you, Katsuyuki Samizawa, writer of these novels. Just own up to the fact that you want to make a sequel. Stop with this justification. Kathy Poe is starting to realize how this Hiroyui and Trace are intertwined. AC 186. Autumn. The same place that once held Ain Yui now holds Artemis and other anti-Alliance forces. Lowe begins his precision infiltration. He is under disguise as a guard. He placed explosives around the power stations. In space, a power outage is a survival threat. The explosions go off. This makes the facility think that it is an anti-Alliance attack. A space shuttle approaches from the spaceport, but it is dismissed as routine civilian traffic. It was in fact Odin's escape. Once power was regained, it was brushed off as nothing and overlooked. This was Kant piloting the shuttle and picking up Odin, Artemis, and other anti-Alliance forces. The final explosion causes another blackout where they make their escape. Meanwhile, Zex and Elv Onagel are on a mission to deliver 25 griefs to the nearly finished fortress, the Bulge. After this mission, they will most likely be getting new units, so this would be the last chance for them to use the griefs. This is the first time Zex and Elv had a chance to connect with one another. In this interaction, it is clear that Elv knows Zex is a peacecraft. He knows because his father fought the peacecrafts. Zex wonders if he told his father, General Daigo Onogel. He says that he doesn't betray his comrades. Despite their camaraderie, there is still some unresolved conflict from their past. This is resolved when Zex puts a bullet in his father's head in the original series. Elv jokes about him reclaiming the peacecraft name. Zex laughs and says that will never happen. Ha ha! Cut to the scene where Zex burns down the peacecraft mansion. Seiss also worked on designs for the Bulge, but once he focused on the Leo, he passed it off to someone else. He complains to his son and wife about them taking the Leo and the Bulge away from him. Hiro is holding a toy Leo, and out of insecurity, Seiss grabs it and throws it. He says the Leo isn't a toy. Hiro just gives him a cold look, like, I'm a psychopath. I will kill you one day. Seiss communicates with Dakim Barton at the L3 colony cluster. We learn that he is the one who made modifications to Kant's shuttle he used to save Artemis and the rebels. He wants him to shoot down a transport heading towards the Bulge. He outsources these orders to Kant, who is in the vicinity. His shuttle approaches the two specials. Artemis pretends that she is hijacking the shuttle. She puts a gun to Kant's head. Leo 3 emerges and points a bazooka at the boys. They make it a point to let you know that the self-destruct mechanism wasn't a thing during this time. They have to justify why they don't just blow themselves up. That's the Gundam Wing solution to problems. Zex's impulse is to fight, but Elv says, leave it to me. The Space Fortress never did receive its 25 griefs, and Zex and Elv disappeared. They were declared MIA. The loss of some of the specials, the escape of Artemis, and the loss of the Marius plant marked the failures for the Earth Alliance and what will be called the First Lunar War. This was Trace's first stain on his immaculate record, so naturally Vaunt scrubbed it out of existence. From that moment on until AC-188, Trace and his specials will be officially off the record. Their actions were attributed to the Alliance Space Forces. Major Septim participated in helping change history, and he gains the ranks to Brigadier General 2 years later, where he will live 9 years freely without a bullet in his head. He was considered quite incompetent by others in his ranks. Trace is inquiring about Marshal Catalonia with regards to his missing cadets. He is taking personal responsibility for their investigation. AC-186, October 26. In AC-133, the Alliance tries to create the ideal global hegemony under Western values. But of course, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and South America resisted this. This is one of the many reasons for mass exodus to the colonies during this time. In the present, the illusion of the Alliance's attempt at peace while fueling the military-industrial complex has never been so apparent. Under the ideals of Hiroyui, the colonists wanted to embrace pacifist demilitarization. The Bulge represents Earth's aggressive projection of power or space's unnecessary burden, depending on one's perspective. This answers the question of if the name is Bulge or Barge. I always called it Barge because there would be no way someone would name something after the bump my dick makes in my jeans, right? Right? Wrong! I guess it's my fault for not being in the Japanese mindset. From AC-174 to AC-186, the Alliance tried to get the colonies to shoulder costs. This would in turn prevent the colonists from funding their own military. Well, that kind of failed. Oh right, they're technically not a military. We just talked about that. One colony at the L2 cluster, VO8-744, felt this burden the most. And this colony is a young duo Maxwell, who will become a warrior born out of the colony's desperation. Seiss is given an invitation to the Bulge's opening ceremony, where he is credited as a contributor. This infuriated Seiss. He decides not to attend the ceremony. Aoi and her son attend the event while Seiss's depression grows with his isolation. Aoi, being a spy, knows he has succumbed to helping the anti-alliance forces. She is actually sympathetic to his needs. As Hiro gives her an origami crane, she decides in that moment to give it all up and live a life as a wife and mother. The Bulge was a celebration of engineering marvels. Seiss has been a whiny bitch about not getting the recognition he deserved, but his complaining isn't without reason. Seiss will be forgotten in the history books, but his work goes on to stand the test of time. However, his own stepson, Hiroyui, would put his engineering to the test. As Hiroyui is pretty much the best pilot in this universe, he put the Leo through many tests throughout this series, and it did indeed prove its worth. At the ceremony, Kilius Catalonia stood at the podium. He speaks of the Lunar War, still fresh. The Bulge is supposed to stand as a representation of authority. He speaks of this being the product of the colonies and that the Alliance is just its shepherd. All this political grandstanding to make it seem like the colonies didn't just pay for their own metaphorical space wall and built it, but this worked as it calmed the colonists' nerves. In AC-186, Kilius will relinquish his title of Field Marshal. His demotion from Field Marshal to General is all for show. He still has a death grip on the Alliance and the colonies. In AC-195, we see Lady Un pull a similar tactic, militarizing the colonies while preaching peace. Dorothy watches her father with boredom. She asks Vaunt where Trace is. It seems he hasn't made it to the party yet. She runs off on her own. Vaunt thinks he should abandon his pursuit of his comrades. He knows that Zex has no past. His documents are all fabricated. He thinks he poses a threat to Trace. That is when he notices a kid with a Leo. It is a young Hiroyui. He knows he is Sace's son. Hiro shows off his Leo toy. He is quiet but then asks Vaunt if the war is over. This throws him off initially. He wants there to be peace, but when asked by Vaunt if he wants to fight, he says he doesn't want to, and merely running accomplishes nothing. Vaunt notes that he doesn't have that childish charm. Translation, you're a little psychopath, 6-year-old Hiro. The two shake hands with their left hands, which is called a scout handshake apparently. As he walks away, Dorothy bumps into him. They wouldn't remember this interaction, and would not run into one another again until AC-195 at the St. Kingdom. Later, on the Bulge Command Center, Vaunt, Septum, and Noventa are talking about the intel they acquired about the new Gundanium mobile suit called Wing Gundam Zero. This thing is as powerful as 50 mobile suits. Septum wants to know if they are expanding their military. This thing is going to create a military arms race throughout the colonies. Luckily for the Alliance, it doesn't seem like the Gundam can reach mass production, as they lack the ability to create at scale. The Wing Zero blueprints wouldn't be complete until Catra finished it 9 years later. Vaunt, struggling with his own mommy issues, is ready to bring down the hammer. Many of the people throughout the colony are young. This is because of the previous generation's inability to let go of power, leaving a gap. Once they died or eventually gave up power, they had no successors. Because of this, they relied on child prodigies. Artemis yells out to begin the attack. Outside of the L2 colony cluster emerges 25 Griefs, the ones that went missing with Elv and Zex. Trace's white-colored units are painted black by the anti-Alliance forces, dubbing it the name Schwartz Grief. The Griefs split into two teams. 8 Chimeras on the outside barely responded to the attack in time. The Bulge begins shaking from the attacks. Chaos ensues. The Alliance's extreme hubris prevented them from properly planning for their new fortress. Aoi looks for the young Hiroyui. Her first instinct is to take out the guards and fire on the panel to get the door open. Sace goes to save his wife and child on the Alueto. Alueto? It's a 0G electric bike. A guy who seems to know Sace gives him a normal suit and escorts him to the reception room. The two ride the bike. It happens to be Odin Lowe, assigned to sabotage the Bulge. But just like Sace, he is here to save Aoi and little Hiro. Oh, this is awkward. Aoi gets the door open, and she heads out into the external passageway. While on the bike, Sace notices the Griefs out in space. They destroy the Chimera guards. Aoi finds little Hiro trying to get his broken Leo. At that moment, the Hiro's two fathers come in to save them. Unfortunately, in that moment, the room is engulfed in flames, consuming Aoi. Infuriated, Sace goes through the hangar and leaves little Hiro in Odin's hands. He finds himself one remaining Chimera. He hates the Grief, but knows it is a Leo at heart. He takes on the Griefs and is surrounded by 3 units. One is taken out, no problem. He then destroys the auto-balancer of the second one. Finally, he pierces through the third with a beam saber while yelling, "You won't have my son." He stabs but misses the cockpit. The Grief fires its cannon, and the attack takes out both the Grief and Sace in the process. Artemis is informed of the 3 units down, and it was done by Trace's specials. They tell the units to converge on the location. That is when Trace comes on the comms challenging Artemis to a duel. He happens to be behind her, just like the battle on the moon. After challenging her, he then opens a comm to the Bulge and suggests they prep the beam cannon. He says to let Vaunt fire this one. She accepts the duel, but it is a ruse. He says he is willing to sacrifice himself to save the Bulge, but Vaunt doesn't accept this. Trace knew this reaction and what would happen next. Vaunt fired the Bulge's beam cannon, using Trace as bait. As the beam blast approaches, the rest of the specials come in at lightning-fast speeds and pushes Trace's Grief out of the way. This eliminates all but 2 Schwartz Griefs, Artemis and her underling. The two retreat. Trace wasn't injured during the attack. Solak, Noin, and the other specials were ordered not to interfere, but it seemed they chose not to listen. Vaunt wouldn't put this on record. He also got a taste of blood as he killed 20 Griefs. AC-187. Odin and little Hiro become colony drifters. Though Odin is his blood father, Sace did most of the child rearing, but one thing Odin can provide this child is survival skills and tactical knowledge. More importantly is what Odin calls the art of staying alive. For him, survival means feeding on others' deaths. He doesn't believe in purity. All that matters is the moment. This is what he passes on to Hiro. Hunter Crucianata passed away from a new strain of the colony flu. Vaughn is glad that he is dead, but Trace tells him not to kick a dead horse. Trace notices his little brother changing. Vaughn has a mark for his assassination. His draconian methods would always lead to an outcome of rebellion. Intercolony communication is now difficult, and interplanetary trades have also been halted. He has also increased censorship. The assassin is, of course, Odin Lowe. He wonders if killing him will change anything. Vaughn has been visiting his mother frequently, so Odin has been able to memorize his patterns. He waits on top of a building with a perfect view of the hospital window. Little Hiroyui ensured their escape route is clear. A male enters the room. Already, something is off. The nurse refills the water and the flowers that were left behind by Vaughn. Little Hiro goes to scout out the situation, as they may have another assassin treading on their target. Meanwhile, outside, Vaughn approaches, waiting for Trace. But he is in the midst of an operation. Vaughn enters alone. Odin is tense, but he waits for his target to move a few feet over before he shoots. Suddenly, violence ensues in the hospital. Odin runs to little Hiroyui, who is holding a gun over a body. Hiro killed the nurse, who happened to kill Vaughn and Angelina. If this transpired 1 second later, Odin could have killed Vaughn without having to kill his mom. Little Hiroyui got a perfect headshot. Odin tells him that his first kill is the hardest, and it gets easier. Trace's mission is successful, but soon gets news of the death of his family. He is more sad over his brother's death. It turns out the nurse wasn't a terrorist. It wasn't some anti-alliance scheme. It was the nurse that Vaughn punched previously. This, along with Vaughn's political agenda, is what sent him over the edge. It was all mostly personal. Trace cries for the first time ever. "You only get 2. That's what Grandpa used to tell me." He withdrew from the spotlight up until AC-193. Some would consider this his dark ages, but it was actually a time of atonement for Trace. MC-0022, next winter. Kathy must go through the Zex files as well, but she reflects on a poem from Trace. That is when they get a call from Dr. T. It happens to be Troa. He informs Master Chang that the young Winter lady has stolen Prometheus. This is referring to Catherine Winter. They wonder if they should kill Professor W's sister, referring to Katra. It appears so. Young duo will head out in the Warlock, and Hiro will head out in Snow White. More on these units later, though there really isn't too much to tell. Kathy Poe must still focus on the Zex files. Father Maxwell says that these files are the same used to wake up Relina Peacecraft. This piques her interest, and she dives back into the past. And that will conclude Mobile Suit Gundam Frozen Teardrop Volume 2. If you are watching this wondering this isn't so bad so far, I agree. Most of the past that we see here is compelling and interesting to flesh out. It is when we venture out to Mars Century that things start to get weird. Vaughn's turn was short-lived. If he were to continue living, Vaughn and Trace would be finding themselves on opposite sides of a war. Next time, in Volume 3 of Mobile Suit Gundam Frozen Teardrop, we bounce back and forth between the early years of Mars Century and MC-0022. Catherine's character that you know and love from the anime is gone, as her character does a 360 on her opinion of war. And we see Relina don the mask. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, your first kill is always the hardest. Peace.